Hello, everybody. Welcome to Trading the Close. My name is Drew Dosek. Big thanks to Gareth and Lawton for covering me during my time off. But guys, back to the markets we're at, and we have brand new all-time high closing status in the S&P 500. We got holiday float going on, a lot of 10-minute candles pushing up today. Plus, we got some news that came out about Intel that quickly recovered. We'll get into those charts here in a moment. But first up, let's check out the market summary board. We see here the Dow Jones up 0.62%, Nasdaq up 0.22%, S&P 500 up 0.34%, U.S. oil under a little pressure, down almost 0.2%. Gold did breach $4,500, now retreating ever so slightly, down on the day 0.08%. Bitcoin under a little bit of pressure earlier, trying to claw its ways back to get back into the green on the day, now trading $87,400. All right, guys, so let's jump into the S&P 500 heat map and see where everything settled out in the day. We see NVIDIA down slightly, down 0.32%. Apple had a decent day, up 0.53%. AVGO also pushing a little bit higher, up 0.26%. We're going to get into that chart here in a little bit because it had a steep fall after earnings, and it's clawing back most of those losses, but I still think stiff resistance is around the corner. Meta up 0.39%, Oracle up 1.1%, Micron, big shining star of the day, up 3.77%. Aside from that, see a lot of flat action across the board. Not too much going on in the pre-holiday mix. Merry Christmas to everybody out there. As a reminder, the markets are closed tomorrow, but we'll be back open on Friday for a full day. All right, into the S&P 500. Now, today's theme is really going to be following these longer-term trend lines, what happens when they break, and then also what happens when they get back above. So you can see here on the S&P 500, we broke down here in November, fought its way all the way back. But what did it do once it got back on top of this trend line? It really just trailed this trend line, then broke again, and then now we find ourselves right back on top, closing at all-time highs. Great move in the near term, but if you flip over the 10-minute chart, look at the price action today. Green candle, green candle, green candle, green candle, green, 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 all the way up until we got to about 1140, and then price went sideways, put in a 10-minute topping tail, at least in the near term, all on light volume, folks. This is a perfect example of what can happen with light volume going in towards the end of the year. We have a little bit of bullish to neutral outlook. And a lot of this too, guys, think of this. We're having end of year retirement accounts. People are piling back into the markets as far as the forced and cap investments in some of their retirement accounts. So they're waiting towards the end of the year, see if they can't get a better price. So far, better price is not being given to them as the markets continue to excel up on the charts. Interesting stuff there on the S&P 500. We'll see how high this goes, but my anticipation over the next week or so is that we trail this inclining trend line before we have bigger institutions come to play in 2026. Next up, the Qs. Now, the Qs here, not as high as the S&P 500. As we see clearly, we're not closing at new all-time highs. Instead, we're down here about to fight this resistance level at $624.97. That corresponds with all of this consolidation with a nice V-shaped recovery. I almost anticipate us tagging this level, chopping sideways, gaining momentum for either a breakup or a breakdown. But again, light volume could push us through this area over the next week. And then again, in 2026, we'll really need to reevaluate where price action is and what pattern is being displayed so we can make a good choice as to if we start to curl over or continue up to new all-time highs. Next up on the SMH, this should give us good insight. Look at this V-shaped recovery that's going on here. If you notice, this is kind of what happens on the 50% area of the parallels too. Price can plunge through, but then immediately come right back up and test, almost like a big net, supporting price action right here before price accelerated higher up on the charts, now pushing up there to the next resistance at $367.56. Please note, guys, IWM typically likes to lead the way. So if we start flirting with this all-time high back here in December 10th, be mindful that we could actually be going higher However, that's also corresponding at the top end of this parallel, which should be stiff resistance on the SMH. So not sure how much more room we got left to run, especially in the next couple of weeks before we start seeing some profit taking come into the markets. Next up, the IWM. The IWM is displaying a little bit of a weaker signal. And today, guys, like I said to you before, we're going to highlight some trend line analysis. So let's take a look at the IWM right now so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. And all you have to do to draw a good trend line is find a major pivot. As you see, I've done so right here from this November low, and then draw it over to the very next significant pivot, which is going to occur here on Wednesday, December 17th. Now, let me go ahead and stretch out the chart just a little bit there so you can see it a little clearer. And you notice here that price has since bounced up from this trend line and is now chopped right into this trend line again. So for the IWM and any small cap enthusiast out there, you want to see price separate from this trend line. Any sort of consolidation and or even trailing of this trend line could lead to a breakdown on the IWM. First support would be the lows here on December 17th, but then a more solid level of support down here at $240.09. Next up, we've got Bitcoin. Now, guys, notice here on Bitcoin, we made many attempts to get above and back into this top 50% area of the parallel. Every attempt so far has failed. Now, watch this trend line that I'm going to draw with the same sort of technical analysis that I did on the last chart. I'm going to go down to the bottom of this pivot here on Friday, November 21st, and just draw this over to the very next pivot low. And notice what's going on. All of a sudden, price action is a little bit clearer on Bitcoin. We've made a rally back up, have since then failed this near-term trend. Price has tried to get back above this trend line and has since now failed and is now coming back over. The good news near term for Bitcoin bulls is that we're not consolidating down near the bottom of this price action. We're consolidating in the top half of this green candle. So far, the support level of $85,626 is holding price, at least for the near term. Should that level break, we're going to be testing those November lows down here at $80,451. Notice again, after all of those failed attempts, the bulls in Bitcoin could become weary, and then also profit taking could then start coming in, pushing price a little bit lower. If you've got a longer term horizon on Bitcoin, this is a great opportunity to start scooping some up at these support levels. But keep in mind, with this parallel channel, we could be going much lower on the charts as the bottom of this parallel could get tagged, which is currently right around $60,000. Next up, gold. Gold, look at this push here today. Now putting in a doji candle at the present time up here on this nice push above $4,500. Now retreated, as I stated earlier, ever so slightly. Now notice what we've done over the past week or so. We've really been highlighting this with this near-term inclining parallel channel. We fought to get back into the top 50% and have now since broken above. So where's gold going to go now, folks? We already know on the daily RSI, near term, we're overbought. But that doesn't stop gold, and it didn't stop gold in these other situations of being overbought over here. So simply get back to the trend line analysis, get from major pivot high to the next major pivot, and we can see here if price continues accelerating up. Let me scroll down the charts just a little bit. We're going to be looking right around $4,700 as the next major resistance on gold should this momentum continue to push. Interesting move here on gold, and also another interesting move on silver, guys. Look at this weekly chart of silver. Now, silver, whenever you have a bull flag form, like this big move up and bull flag, it gives you a generated target, right? So this target has already been accomplished. And look at silver just continue pushing higher. Whenever stocks, commodities, etc., get into this exaggerated form on the charts, it usually creates an air pocket where price eventually, when sellers come in, can push price down. So there's two locations I'm watching for price to come, at least in the near term. First, this longer term trend line at $62.50, followed by this near term trend line right here, which does correspond with the 50% area of the parallel, right around $57.87. I scroll back out on the chart, you can see I've gotten this longer term trend line all the way back from a pivot in 1980 connecting over to the pivot high that occurred here in 2011. So price likely is going to come right back into the trend line. That's just how price works on charts, especially when you study TA, but you got to at least tip your cap to silver for now. Incredible move in momentum, clearly overbought on the weekly RSI, now pushing close to 90, folks. That's definitely way overbought. Anything over 70 is overbought. Next up, we've got US oil. Over the past week, has staged a really good recovery. We noticed we had a decent decline, sideways price action, almost implying we were going to come down and tag this next support level at $54.52. Has since said, nope, not so fast, bouncing right back up, getting here to all this consolidation here where we do face some resistance for oil to go higher. Be anticipating sideways chop from this area. If oil does continue higher, we will be pushing up here to $60.28, which this area will be good resistance, followed by this $61 level, which would be even stronger resistance. So a lot of barriers for oil to get through if it's going to continue moving up on the charts. With the production of oil going on here in the United States, as well as OPEC, I don't see that happening anytime soon with a push above this trend line. We're likely going to be stalling out right here near the $60 level if we do push up and tag that level. Next up, nat gas. Look at the fall from grace. And this is exactly what I'm talking about. When you look over at the silver chart, look at that huge push up. Look at nat gas, huge push up and massive decline. Now, nat gas is called the widowmaker for a reason, because it does whip price around like this so very frequently. But if you notice, I've got an inclining trend line right here, again, drawn from major pivot to major pivot and strung all the way out. And you can see that price the last 2 days has been attempting to get back up and tag this inclining trend line. In essence, that completes the break, and this should be resistance. This resistance level is $4.16. Should we tag that tomorrow, we should actually be seeing a little bit of sell-off, much like what we had today on nat gas. Support level at $3.74 is still holding. If that does break, we're looking down here at $3.30 is the next level of support on nat gas. Next up, Intel. Now, Intel came out with news today, and it wasn't actually them. NVIDIA decided to halt testing for the 18A chips that Intel is producing. This has raised concerns amongst investors about Intel's capability to attract major external foundry customers. But as you can see here, this little bit of deviance, this little bit of change in price action was quickly gobbled right back up by investors. That sentiment quickly waned, and then price started getting right back into a positive move for Intel. Even though it's down 19 cents on the day, we were down as much as 4% when we were tagging this inclining trend line. Notice too, price did not fill this gap. This gap is at $34.50. The low today was $34.95. Really caught and exemplified right here on this 10-minute chart, tagging that trend line. That was a very aggressive level to buy, considering the news and the fallout with NVIDIA backing out from Intel. But nonetheless, investors came scooping it right back up, pushing price very close to where price closed the day before. Interesting recovery here on Intel with that bad news. But if we notice, we had a big move down, sideways consolidation. That all does imply we should be going lower. Now that we've tagged this trend line for a third time, the next support's at 34.16, followed by 32.89. I almost anticipate a break here, potential catch support in this range, and a retest of this trend line in the very near future. Next up, Tesla. Tesla basically had a flat day today, but I bring this to your attention as I've done this many times in the past. We still have an active inverse head and shoulders pattern on the chart with a targeted move all the way up here at $512.97. Currently, price is getting stuck right here at the 50% area of the parallel, forming consolidation, if you will, except for this one candle on December 22nd. This big wick gives me a little bit of caution that this measured move is not going to be hit. We'll see if we can't have a nice close above this 50% area with an accelerated move up towards $500. That would then definitely clear the path for the move, for the targeted measured move to be hit. If this area fails, as we've seen, we've been consolidating for a while. Next support on Tesla is down here at $454.87. All right, next up, Apple. Now, Apple, look at this. Pretty day for Apple today, up $1.45, 0.5% up on the chart, but still it's forming bearish consolidation on the charts. And then also look at this. We've got a potential, now we're several steps ahead. We've got a potential head and shoulders pattern developing on the chart, with this being the left shoulder, the head, and then this being the right shoulder that has still yet to form. Now we need for this head and shoulders pattern to trigger for price to break this neckline, this trend line that I just drew on the charts. That's right here, roughly at $267.71. Should this level be broken, the measured move actually takes it down here to the 50% area, the parallel, right around $250. If you were kicking yourself not getting Apple up here, this would be the opportunity to start scooping some up, as well as the following support down here at $234.06. Lastly, we've got AVGO. Now, AVGO, massive decline after earnings. You can see here, like I described before on these parallels, they like to hold price right at this 50% area like a net. So far, that's worked out great. Yesterday's price action closed comfortably above, securing that area back into the 50%, top 50% area on AVGO. But I think resistance is not far away, designated by this $362 level. Also note what happens when I draw this trend line. Again, the theme of the show today, guys. Look what happens when I draw this over to the next major pivot that occurred on November 14th and string that out. How we now have convergence right here of resistance, right at $362, maybe a little bit higher at $364 if it takes a few more days to get there. But this zone should be major resistance on the chart of AVGO. Now, AVGO can very well blast through that and fool a lot of investors, which then the next resistance is $380.34, in which we still could see another break of that trend line. Keep in mind, some of these big semiconductor companies have a lot of investors behind them. So it will take a while for these stocks to really start unwinding. This is clearly shown here on this chart where we have a break of trend, but yet price is still fighting to get back up. So we could eventually push through, but this could be a good swing short opportunity, starting with the position around 362, adding around 380, for an eventual curl over and fall back down, at least to test the 50% area of the parallel, if not break and go a little bit lower, closer to the $300 level. All right, guys, that wraps up trading the close. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Send this out to your friends and family so they too can learn technical analysis and become free of any other jobs and responsibilities, making money in the comfort of their own home. Merry Christmas to everybody. Markets are closed tomorrow. We'll be back open on Friday, but we'll have trading the close on Monday. So you guys have a fantastic weekend. Be safe with your friends and family, and we'll see you back here on the charts next week. All right, guys, take care.